right, let's get going. I got this today, just so you see this. Android overtakes iOS in apps, increases developer lead. All right, and the big thing is here, right there, it says, noting that the Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Amazon App Store all recorded substantial growth last year. Google finally closed the gap and finally jumped ahead of Apple, ending the year with 1.43 million apps compared to 1.21. Now, they didn't really explain that right there, so I think they must mean new apps. I know that the last number that I heard between this was, and from the figures I read, they didn't say if it was worldwide, nationwide, what it was, but there were over 9 billion apps that have been downloaded. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but sometimes too, it's you can also tweak what's out there. Put your own new spin on it too. So yeah, and will they come beating at your door? I guess we'll see. And there's the growth right there. Click on image for larger view. That might help, huh? I thought that. As it says here, the company also pointed out some interesting differences in the kind of apps stocking store shelves. The business category led app growth, followed by food and drink, lifestyle, social networking, and catalogs. Meanwhile, the games category led Android growth. All right, followed by photography, music, business, and entertainment. I thought that was interesting just because games are here, they're not even shown here. Again, maybe that's just me. I don't know. All right. I do have, I don't know where I put it. I guess it's over here. Maybe not. I'll do it here. Give me a second here. Because I just opened up something, and of course I just closed it. I do have this book, the one that we have for this class. I do have it on Course Smart here. The other one, of course, I don't, because we still don't know which one we're using or whatever in there. So now we're going to go in. We're going to look at the Twitter searches app today and go on from there. I mentioned last time that, again, this is chapter 4. Chapter 9 in this book is on how to submit something to the App Store, etc., whatever the App Store happens to be, but it's more along those lines. Guidelines for a good app, etc. So in other words, we're talking about 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I mentioned this last time. I said 4 is that Twitter searches app. 5 was that flag quiz. 6 was that canon game. 7 is the doodles thing. 8 is the address book. And I said at a minimum, I want to go through 4 and I want to go through 8. But neither one of those are GUI. So to me, a natural one, another one to have gone through, would have been that doodles one that's chapter 7. So when we get done with this chapter, I'll ask you where you want to go next. In other words, do you want to go on and do that flag quiz? Do you want to do that canon, which is a simple game? Do you want to do something else? All right, and if you say, well, yeah, let's do that canon, it's not really a great game. All right, and probably we can go out there and find stuff online for other games too if you'd like to learn how to build a game. Okay, yeah. In fact, a lot of those Udemy ones are free, the courses. All right, so when we look in here, we talked a little bit about this last time, but here's the objectives. I'm not going to read any of them to you. All right. But we talked about this last time that when they're going to talk in here, notice it says use shared preferences. Well, again, that's the equivalent of like using a dictionary for the stuff that we're doing in iOS. All right. And also remember that, again, we're talking in here and they say use an array adapter to specify a list view. What we want to be able to do is make that list, all right, expand and contract. They're going to use both an array in here and they're going to use shared preferences in here. They'll both be used. All right. Plus what the author will use in here is the alert dialog. All right. The equivalent of kind of like a message box. All right. One of the things that's discussed in here, and I'm not going to say it's hard or it's easy, but it's one of the hallmarks of working on Android apps, and that's the use of intents that they mentioned right here. Okay, so when we get to that point, we'll talk about that. And then finally, programmatically hiding the keyboard, which is at the very end of the chapter. That's again in that Android manifest.xml file. So we'll hit on all that stuff. Here's the overview of everything that's discussed in here. I'm not going to go over a bit of it, but that's what we are going to be going through. All right. Now, the first thing, to me at least, that the author's trying to do here is to sell you on Twitter. Now, I was going to ask this, and I guess if you lie, I have no way of knowing. How many of you in here tweet regularly? Yeah. Okay. Now, that's the next question, is how many people have never done a flamin' thing with Twitter? I set up an account, I started to do stuff, and I thought to myself, there's nothing I was putting out there that I thought if I was somebody else I'd want to read. And some people just do go nuts with it. It's funny because I have no idea how my daughter comes up with the time, the one who lives in St. Louis, but she regularly tweets, and she's on Facebook all the time. All right. To each their own. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's funny because once you sign up for an account, I get stuff from them all the time telling me to follow this and follow that and follow that. It's like, for some reason, I don't know if either he has a lot of followers, but they want to increase it, or he doesn't have a lot, but almost every time I get it, the first one is Ryan Seacrest. It's like, yeah, right, I want to follow him. Okay. But this particular app, remember, what it's designed to do is you're able to sit there and come in right here and put in any Twitter-related command right here to find tweets about whatever you put in here. All right? And basically, usually at least, whatever you put in here, a subset of it will be here. So the tag is what you're going to call your group of tweets that get returned from your Twitter search. All right? And you can see they used as an example here. That literally is the command. From : Ditel space since : 2013-10-01. Show me all of Ditel's tweets. All right, since what? October 1st, 2013. You wouldn't do that today because I'm sure there would be thousands of them. All right. You don't have to put anything in there. In other words, it would have been totally legit to put Ditel right here and Ditel right here. But that's going to return every tweet, that Ditel has ever had. They will show in here how there are ways that you can siphon your search out, etc. All right. Now, not just that. So that's the first thing in here. It says, as you'll see, the app also allows you to share your tweets, to edit and delete. And when it says edit and delete, it's not the tweets themselves, it's the searches. All right, so we'll get into that in just a minute. Again, the app supports both portrait and landscape orientations. And the first thing they talk about here is test driving the app. Now, I did come in here and I removed what I had. John, I'm going to count on you here because I'm going to show what I had in here before, and if there's something else new or whatever I should have in here or something that's wrong, maybe you can give me a hand here. But you know this by now. I'm going to do this basic. I'm still going to use Nexus 1. I don't know why we can't. And for the device, what I used last time was the Nexus 1, the 3.7-inch one. Now, is that what you're still using, this one here? Now, the target, Where I had this before was right there at Android 5.0.1 API level 21. All right. The CPU, I had ARM. The keyboard, I don't think it really mattered, but I think we usually kept it off because we wanted to put the soft keyboard on. Okay. Skin, did you say last time we had to have a skin, or do we not now? The dynamic hardware controls? Okay. All right, so we've got that. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, everything else that's in there, we kept the defaults. All right. So everybody see that? The big thing in here is what device you have, because a lot of that's going to depend on the size when the emulator gets up and starts running. All right. But I don't think there's really anything that's in there that we haven't talked about in the past. Okay. So everybody's got that? Okay. Well, I can wait a minute. That's fine. Well, the question was, and we talked about this last time, should you delete your old one? It probably wouldn't hurt to delete it and redo it. It's the same kind of question when you asked that the other day, Teresa, to Terry, about should you remove the old virtual desktop that you've got on your machine at home? You know, and I think if you start, you know, this is fresh. John and Adrian did this during the break. So I think that, you know, why take any chances? It takes just a couple minutes to go and recreate one. Or create one. But it's funny, I saw him this morning. It's the first time I'd seen him since, you know, right before break. And just a sec. And I thought he'd ask me how it was all going. He just said morning, just kept walking. Yeah. All right. Well, remember, in fact, I'll come back to this. I'll just cancel it for now, okay? And I'll just close this for now. But remember, we can always go out to Window, and we can go down to SDK Manager too, which is never a bad idea to bring that up and check and see if there's any updates, etc., since the last time this was worked on. Now, one thing about that, you know, I told you last time to install this stuff, and I think John said that they found out it works much better to not install the old stuff. All right, which is fine. All right, but they're going to show you what you have. And I'm just going to look through here. So notice under the SDK tools, there's an update available. Have you updated? Okay. So you've done yours. All right, so that one. All right, what else is there? I see that there were two things checked. The support repository. But to my knowledge, am I right then? There's really nothing else that should have to be done. Now, is there something that Mike has to do that he hasn't done? See that, Mike? Right. But Mike, you should make sure that all the stuff that I'm showing here is installed on yours under 5.0.1. Is it? Okay, good. I was going to say, because after you do that and you bring the virtual device manager up again, then that stuff should be available to you that you didn't see before. Yeah? Well, let's take it from the top. Yeah. Everybody's cool up till here? Down here? It's, okay, hey, John, Laura just asked, on hers, she said, all of that stuff is installed. All right, so I would say, why not click the check boxes and uninstall everything? It's bloat, it's not needed, and I don't think it's going to really hurt anything, but it could slow things down. And John had said that he had done some testing on the emulator with Adrian, and it seemed to be more robust. But let's make it as robust as we possibly can, I guess. Just like right here, if you check on here, make sure that when you do that though, if 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 you click delete two packages, notice mine now says install and delete two. It's because I have two things checked. See, that's checked here, and that's checked down here. The system doesn't know, since they're checked, whether I want to install those or delete those. So what I'm telling you is if you decide right now, oh, I want to delete all this stuff because I've got it installed, make sure that's all that's checked. Okay? And if it is, then you should, so if you have 10 or whatever this is, then just do the delete that number of packages. And I will tell you this, what you just said, I 100% believe you, okay? That said, one thing about Java, if you don't know that in the past, if you loaded the old JDK, it loaded the new one right up on top of the old one, and it kept them both. Before we had IT here who really knew what they were doing, I came in here once, I said, this thing is running so slow. We had 8 JDKs on here. And they were like over about a 4 or 5 year period. I kept asking them to remove, and I had no admin rights, so I couldn't do it. All right. So you got that? All right. Yep. And again, Laura, you might have this too, where that update's available. That I am going to install in just a minute, right up on the top. Okay. 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 Well, it's never a bad idea, and I'm not saying that every time you get in here that you have to do this. But I'd say at least every other week when you come in here, you should bring up the SDK manager and just take a look at what's there. The what? This? This here? Well, it might be that yours looks like this. These? And hopefully you got it up here then, from the earlier one, from the 5.0.1. Then you should be all right. And that's everything. Again, down here under the extras, the support repository. All right. And I mean, this is a very blanket statement, but I really and truly believe it's true. I think you could get through this entire semester and never do any updates whatsoever. And I think it would work. All right. What you might find is typically when there's an update, I mean, at least sometimes it's because there's an inherent problem in the code, and they've come up with something to try to make it better. So down here, I don't think that's going to matter. Should it? Tools.old she doesn't have. So again, the bottom line is the only thing that I have checked here is up at the very top, the Android SDK tools, the update that's available, revision 24.0.2, and then down near the bottom, the Android support repository, revision 10, update available for revision 11. That's the only two things that I'm at least right now planning on installing. Yeah. Well, and I didn't put it there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Well, again, I think I mentioned this to all of you before. I talked to Terry last year. We could never understand, even though the stuff worked fine and everything. I don't know if you remember this, but last year, not everyone's looked the same when we did this stuff. And it was all built off the image that I okayed. He literally ghosted that image and put it on every machine. And when he asked why was it like that, I don't know. You know, and asked him, why is it like that? He's, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. You all right now? Are you just doing those two, or you have more? Oh, okay, okay. Like I said, this is the time to do this. You know, it's amazing. The um, the first year people, you guys may or may not care about this, but with the first year people, we've already built 2 Java programs. I'm amazed. All right. No, one of the things we talked about yesterday was we're not. We remember we don't GUI Java, and all the people who are stuck in the C# class on the GUI stuff, and they're being too literal about everything. John was working with a guy yesterday, you know, and he got it, but he was just something was in here that he didn't get. You know what I mean? He knew what he was doing. Yeah. Well, but I'll tell you though, on Monday, Terry came in and introduced himself to everybody, to the first year people, and there were 2 buttons there. He told me which one to click, and of course I clicked the other one. I have no idea why I did, but I knocked myself off of the virtual desktop, and you could see he's trying not to start laughing at me. Well, you can laugh at me. I don't know why I did that, but I did. Yeah, but like I said, people are making too much of it. And then other people, I'm watching them, and they're tweaking their GUI. They're playing with colors and everything. And I don't know if you heard me say that yesterday, but I'm like, GUI doesn't matter in the end. You know, if you've got a butt ugly GUI that really works well, it's better than a beautiful GUI that doesn't do anything. It depends. But again, with an app, you know, if you're creating an app like in here with Android, yeah, the colors and stuff is going to matter. You know, if you put a preview type of thing out for your thing out there and people like it because it's a shiny new toy, better chance that they're going to want to load it. I was reading this stuff over the break too, and does anybody know, and I'm not making this up, in at least in the iOS App Store, if you took everything, free and not free, what's the average price of an iOS app? You understand what I'm saying? So if there's a billion of them, if there is, let's just say there's a billion of them, and if you took all billion, and let's say half of those are even free, what's the average price? Because this blew me away. Yes, you're both way, way too high. 16 cents. That's how many of them are free. Yeah. And the funny thing too was on their top 40 sellers that they had, um, there were only 2 that were more than $8. They didn't say what they were. They just said they were 2 of them that were $9.99. Oh, there's expensive ones too out on the App Store. I'm talking about the ones that are the most downloaded. Did you see that too? They recommend that you close the window, then reopen it. Of course, you have to reopen the right one, but okay, so that's now installed, and that's now installed. So I know those 2 things worked. just so you know, for the next class, what's really happening with not maybe not that, but a lot of these books today, there's basically with a lot of these books for writing mobile apps, there are two kinds. There's the kind that have a bunch of apps and they explain them to you, and there's the kind that have virtually no app, but just give you everything there is in the language. There's very few books that are a hybrid. Is what I'm saying makes sense? Dytel's books, they show their apps, and they talk about it, but not in a lot of depth. But there's some really good books out there that I've been looking at, and they don't have one app in them. They just have bits of code here and there, but they explain every intricacy of the language. I don't know which one's better. Well, maybe there might be a niche out there for that. Yeah. Now I'm just now creating the new Android virtual device, and there it is. Now with this, is this changed? Do we still? Right. And you said you changed this to like 6, 5, and then do you leave that blank? All right. And do you wipe your user data? No. And hopefully, I don't know how much of the testing on this, what I'm about to say you did or didn't do, but usually if you start up the emulator and if it's running for a while and for some reason you have to shut it down, once you start it again, it should come up faster the second time. Now, do I have to start it again? I played with a snapshot, and then I went on to Stack Overflow, and I read two articles and they were both good. And one said how great it was, and the other one said never use it. And they were both written by esteemed people who seemed to know what they were talking about. So I don't know. Got it? Are you set there, Teresa? Okay. Okay. So we're probably not going to make much progress on this today. So plan on when you come in here. In fact, we can all do this before we get done today, and that is we can start up a brand new project before we finish. All right, and we'll just call it Twitter. All right, and we'll do that, and whatever we don't finish today, and and maybe if we don't finish anything more today, but we'll start there. And literally in your book, and I'm not ending class, I'm just telling you this, in the book on the bottom of page 108, building the GUI, the app's GUI. We'll just basically start there. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? And Laura, everything from front camera on down, everything from the this half down, those are all the defaults. And as John said, because I've tried creating it both with no skin and with different skins and with that skin with dynamic hardware controls. It should work without anything, but it does seem for some reason to work a little better, and that one seems to work the best. I don't know why, but and this is automatically checked by default. All right, so you uncheck it because typically on most of these programs that we write, we're going to have the soft keyboard that comes on automatically. All right, and otherwise, you know, the hardware keyboard is always going to be present. You don't want that. This, as he said, we may have to change that Atom stuff if we do get those. It's funny, I saw Kristen. It's the first time I've seen her in a while. I forgot to ask her if there was any status or any update on that, but usually when she's got updates on stuff, she comes and tells me right away. So, your call. You know, it's, yeah, Jeff wants to know where the hell his money is too, so. All right, so everybody has this now, am I correct? Who needs it? And it's out there, so if somebody's watching it from home, all right, all the stuff is there. John recommend you make that 5 and you have that be blank. And you don't wipe user data. You don't need the what? The wearable stuff, you mean? No. Everything I've shown, I think that's the way he set it up on his. All right, if you ever get this message, everybody see the message that I'm getting here right now? It says could not write there. All right, that means that in my app data file, it says could not write that, and I think it tries to write some of this at least to the desktop, even though it doesn't say the desktop right there. But I know that I've got a bunch of garbage, so what I'm going to do is just I'm going to grab that. It says no space left. In fact, I'm not even going to grab it. I'm just going to close. But what that means is I've got too much stuff on my virtual desktop. Stop it. It says that it didn't have enough space, but it started it anyway. That's nice. Well, I just got a lot of junk on here, period. Problem is the H drive is filled up too. Got a thing from IT saying we get 512 meg, and they want to let me know I'm using 510 meg plus. And you really should remove some of your stuff. So, but when I put this in, shouldn't I be able to link up right away, connect to USB device like this? Yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, when I do this at home, I never can. Ever. Not ever. Mine has never once worked from home. In fact, under all those things that you see there, whoops, no, don't send a control alt delete. Oh, I'm sure, yeah. But on here, I don't get these options either. No. One of them says, do I want to use the camera? And sometimes that's all I get. And it doesn't matter. I've tried putting the jump drive in before I get into the virtual desktop. I've tried it afterwards. I've rebooted. I've logged off. I've tried every combination I can think of, and I've never once gotten it to recognize a flash drive at home. So I'm looking on here. Oh, that is it. Yep. So move some of this stuff here. I've tried that. I've tried that. That didn't work either. One 52, 156. Well, while I'm loading this, why don't we take a break and we'll pick it back up at 2. All right? Is yours finished? shouldn't this start? This is like the second or third time I've tried this. I click start. Now in that temporary directory, that thing had one file in it from December 4th. There it goes. Okay. See, I thought by making it 5 it would have been smaller. Yeah, when I did it last time like that, it did. It came up about that big. You know, it was real small. Okay. Okay. I did not know that. Okay.